everyone, and welcome to the Vintage Vehicle Show. I'm Cathy Kelley, and today we are here in San Juan Capistrano, California at the Rotary CARE Car Show. And there are a variety of different vehicles around, so we are going to talk to some of the owners and take you with us. Come check it out. So we're here with Zach Norwood, who is the owner of this amazing 51 Pontiac Chieftan wagon. And Zach, tell me, how did you come to own this car?
Well, I've always loved wagons, and I have not a large family, but an adventurous family. We love surfing, we love the beach, the Southern California lifestyle, and I just wanted something I could throw my kids in, my board on the top, and just go have fun cruising.
So tell me, what's under the hood of the car?
The car now has a small block 350 Chevy motor. It would originally had a straight 8 from the factory, but we just wanted the reliability and the extra horsepower for being an everyday driver.
Okay. So what changes or upgrades have you made to this?
Besides the paint, which has been redone recently, but close to stock, it has the new motor. It has the new transmission, being the Turbo 400, a Curry 9-inch rear end, new suspension, new wiring, new upholstery, but I tried to make it remain stock in appearance.
Yeah, and I know that you said earlier you wanted to use this car for its original use.
Correct. And again, like I said, I load up the family, we load up picnics and the surfboards, and we just drive all around, and we love doing it.
You don't mind going to the beach with it?
No, not at all. I park it right on the sand at San Onofre and load the boards up and don't mind getting it dirty. It's just a car, but I still wipe it down when I'm done.
Yeah. And what originally drew you to this vehicle?
Besides it, just the beauty of it, and I do love the wagons. It is very rare. Most people have never seen a Pontiac wagon, tin woody, and I just like a different vehicle, and I like the rarity of it, and it's just such a pretty vehicle, and I love the 50s lines.
There are clearly a lot of really cool features on this car, but tell me some of your favorite.
Definitely the favorite feature is the front amber Indian on there. The coolest part of this car, I think, is at nighttime when I turn on the headlights, that Indian will glow and you can just see it coming at you, and it's just such a dominant feature of the car, and it's what everybody sees because it's right up front, and it's just a beautiful hood ornament.
We're here with Dennis Proud, the very proud owner of this 1933 Ford Roadster. And Dennis, tell me the story about how you started to own this car.
Well, I looked for a 1933 Roadster for probably 2.5 years, trying to find one that I liked that was basically stock that I could then hot rod. I almost bought one in Texas, and the owner it was a restored car that they used for a stock class, and he was having a heart attack because I was going to make it into a hot rod. And just before I bought that, I found this car in Idaho, and it was exactly what I wanted, and somebody had started on it but had not, completed it. So I went to Idaho, saw the car, liked it, and I bought it. And I am the 4th owner of the car. The car was originally bought by a family named Harrington, who lived in Council, Idaho, and they purchased it at a Ford dealership in Rupert, Idaho in 1933. And they drove the car until approximately 1960 when it broke, and they don't remember what happened because I did talk to the original owners. And it was put in a shed right next to the barn. This is actually a barn on a ranch, in Council, Idaho, and it sat there from 1960 until 1998. In 1998, a tin dealer in just outside of Meridian, Idaho, bought the car, and he was going to restore it. Well, after 3 years, his wife got mad at the fact that he still had this thing in the garage and stuff, and so he sold it to a guy named Marv Perkins in Boise, Idaho. After a short time working on it, because of some complications, he decided to sell it, and I saw it on advertised, and I went up and I bought the car. Since purchasing the car, we completely tore the entire car apart, taking all the doors, fenders, everything off, and started the restoration on it. It's a boxed frame. It's still the original 33 frame. It has a Chevrolet motor in it, ZZ4, with a 200 R4 transmission and a Currie 8-inch rear end. I wanted the car to look as stock as possible. It's a very, very fun car. I can go down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, take the hands off the wheels, and it just runs perfectly. So it's something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I've built some other cars, but this is the one I really love, and this is the one that they'll bury me in.
So you're never going to sell it?
Never going to sell it, no, and I have been offered way more than what it's worth, but I'm not interested in selling it. And by the way, this is the very first, and a lot of people don't understand it, this is the very first car that Edsel, Henry Ford's son, designed. It's got the more flowing lines than what like a 32 has, because he wanted to compete with the European car makers and start to sell Fords over in Europe. And so that's where it got the smooth design. Everybody thinks that Edsel designed the Edsel car. Well, Edsel died in 1947, and that was a tribute car to him. But this is the very first car that Edsel actually designed. So I think that's pretty cool.
We're here with the owner of this gorgeous 48 Plymouth Coupe, Dave McLaughlin. And Dave, tell us about this car. How'd you come to own it?
Well, first of all, the motivation was that I really wasn't looking for the car, but I had owned a similar model when I was a teenager, and one of my customers from my restoration shop had been buying parts off of this car from a young fellow that had it stored in a storage garage in Venice Beach. And I asked him if he knew whether it was a business coupe or a club coupe, and he said, no, I don't know, but describe the car. So I described the car to him, and it sounded like the model that I used to have. So I said, well, let's go up there. And I went up there and looked at it, and it was a good start. A lot of parts missing off of it, but it looked like a good project for me, seeing as though I'd owned one when I was a teenager. So I drug it home, and or back to the shop anyway, and just started tinkering away with the metalwork. First thing I did was put these 58 Chevy headlights into it, which was a lot of work, grafting them on from where a single headlight used to be. Did that first, and kind of thought that looked pretty cool, and then I took on chopping the top, took 3 inches out of the roof, and did that, and then did a lot of other modifications of smoothing it off, taking the door handles and all the other trim off of it, filling the vent in the cowl place there, and putting a peak down the rest of the hood to match the peak in the roof, and took the center windshield post out and what they call V-butted the glass, and Frenched a little antenna into the fender here, which is kind of what they used to do back in the old days. And then it just kind of sat in primer for probably 10 years or so in my shop. I got busy with work and, had to make a living. So it kind of sat there, and I didn't have any running gear in it. It still had the old 6-cylinder in it, which I was going to get rid of and put a V8 in it. And a good friend of mine had a whole bunch of early Chrysler Hemi engines, and he offered me a Hemi engine if I would use that as the power for the car, because it was a Chrysler product and should have had a Chrysler engine in it. So I did that, and that kind of got me re-fired up on the car, and it took me a couple of years from there, but managed to get it finished. And interestingly enough, it is classified as body-wise as a 48 Plymouth, but on the registration that I have, it is actually listed as a 49, which was a different body style. It was much squarer body. They changed the body style, but I found out that they made a certain number of these transition cars that were actually 49s made with leftover 48 body parts. So officially it's a 49, but cosmetically it's a 48.
Yeah. We're standing here with Rod Hatter, who is the owner of this 1949 Rolls-Royce. And Rod, tell us how you came to own this car.
Well, I was looking for something else. In fact, it was a Bentley I was looking for about 7 years ago. And somebody called me up and said, well, did you consider a Rolls-Royce? And I said, yeah, let me have a look at it. So he brought it over and I fell in love with it right away. So I always say it found me.
So have you yourself done any upgrades to this car?
Not really very much. I've just done little things like I put these mirrors on. I put that antenna on. It was there before, but it was looking kind of bad, so I replaced it. Things like that, mostly.
And you don't drive it very much?
Not a lot, but I have a perfect garage for it in Laguna. And so I take it out, and that's a perfect place to drive around because you have so many tourists there, and everybody looks at it, and they get so many big smiles, and that's what makes me happy.
And so I know you love this car. Your wife, different story?
I drove it home, and she took one look at it, and she said, I didn't know we were a Rolls-Royce family here. But in any event, she wasn't too serious about it, although she was upset. But then within the next week, I took her in it, and we went to the Montage Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel in town, and we drove into the circular driveway, and as soon as she got out, she was the belle of the ball, you know.
You're definitely treated like royalty when you step out of this car.
Yeah, so after that, she thought, that car's not so bad after all. So now she's one of its biggest fans.
She came to love it too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell us, what's under the hood of this car?
Well, one of the things that I really was attracted to about this car is that it's a very simple Rolls-Royce. It has a 6-cylinder straight-line engine in it that came from before World War II. Very solid, dependable, and it has a manual transmission, so it's very simple, and I like that part of it. Also, I like the fact that this one is left-hand drive, so it's the same as I'm used to.
Yeah.
And many Rolls and Bentleys are not. They're right-hand drives. But this one, that particular model in 1949 was meant only for outside of the UK. It was meant for the Americas, South Africa, places like that. So they tended to make more left-hand drives.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the hood ornament that you have?
I will. This one's rather unique, or different anyway, from the typical Rolls-Royce. Spirit of ecstasy is what they call this lady, sometimes also called Nanny in her nightie, I think is what they call it, something like that. But it was a famous sculpture by a fellow in France. In any event, this one is unusual because in this particular case, she's kneeling down. And in the other one, she's standing up and kind of like, going this way into the wind. Whereas this one, they say this is the highest hood, not the hood, but the radiator, and therefore the hood. But because it was so high, they didn't want her sticking up this far, so they put her into a kneeling position.
We've talked a lot about the exterior of the car, but I know that there are a lot of interesting things under the hood.
It's simple, but it's interesting to me, very interesting. It's that straight 6-cylinder engine, and it you have to remember, this kind of comes out of the 30s. This car was built first in 1949, but Rolls-Royce didn't build any during World War II. They were only built aircraft engines. So, but in the 30s, I think they stopped around 1939. But in the 30s, they were preparing for this car, this Silver Dawn. And so that's when this was designed. So you'll see some old things in here that are kind of funny. For example, under the hood is a hand crank, just in case you need it. It's one of those things that, they weren't too sure about batteries, and so you could plug it into the, the front of the car and then go there and take your chances, really, because they're pretty critical. Another thing is has its own little trouble light so you can plug it in and you can run around and see if your tires are okay or whatever, that kind of thing.
sitting here with Alex, and this is his 47 Caddy. Alex, tell me a little bit about it.
Well, we got our 1947 Cadillac. We got it about 3 years. Brought it in from Wisconsin, and we've been enjoying it, taking it to all the car shows.
What are some of the upgrades you've made?
Well, we've actually put air conditioning. We put the wood grain dash. We've also put a new motor in it, a new transmission, new rear end. We put the airbags, and still got to do interior work, but we're almost finalizing our project.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for talking to us today, and thank you for joining us. Again, I'm Cathy Kelley, and thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show.